Why accepting a Russian Federation passport is an acknowledgement of Jewish racism and fascism. We, members of Russian Orthodox Church of the Tsarist Empire, are accused by the Russian Jewish authorities of rejecting official documents, primarily of rejecting Russian passports, and for this reason we are declared criminals. However, in many ways, the Russian passport is an anti-human and anti-Christian document, which, in its hidden meaning, carries within it a recognition of Jewish racist ideology. Therefore, as believers and patriots of our homeland, we cannot agree to the adoption of this criminal and blasphemous document. We will present our explanations and evidence based on the facts. The personal identification code in the passport is a flagrant violation of law and order. The passport has a personal code column, but no code number. But what is this personal identification code? According to the Priozorsk Court's decision, case number 3663 of February 13, 2002, this number is 666. Found in the taxpayer identification number TIN. Numerous scientific examinations have already clearly demonstrated that the TIN is a number instead of a name. A personal identification number, PIN. If the Russian Federation passport previously included a personal identification number column, this indicates the Russian government's plans to number all people, as was done in Nazi concentration camps. See RF Government Resolution number 828 of July 8, 1997. Regulations on the Russian Federation passport. Order of the Ministry of Internal Affairs of September 15, 1997, number 605. Paragraph 5. Government Order number 323R of March 2, 2000. It appears that the authorities planned to implement this numbering system for every human, but apparently not all the technological tools were ready for it, or there were other hidden reasons. However, with the adoption of the new Russian passport, the tax code was adopted, which began assigning identification numbers to people until the necessary system was created. This identification number is assigned personally to each human. 99% of the population has one, and is immutable, accompanying the human throughout their life and after death. The term personal identification number refers to the unaltered identification number assigned to an individual registered in the systematized set of documents data generated by the state population census of the Russian Federation. Since such a data system has not been created at the federal level, the personal identification number field is currently not completed. Russian Federation Supreme Court decision of August 9, 2011, case number GKPI 11902. RF Government Resolution of July 8, 1997, number 828, Regulations of the Russian Federation Passport. Thus, the TIN as an identifier serves as a personal identification number. Over time, with the development of identification systems, the government's plan was completed, and the Unified Population Register, Federal Law of June 8, 2020, number 168FL, was created. This register includes everything about a face, including all identifiers, which form a single database assigning a unique number to each human. In other words, we were essentially numbered from the very beginning of the Russian Federation's existence and deceived into accepting the number of the beast contained in the taxpayer identification number TIN, according to the 2002 decision of the Priozorsk Court, presided over the Judge Sheludyakov, Case 23663. Moreover, this number is also contained in the symbols of the new passport model, typical for the Russian Federation, which the Russian Federation has been producing since 1997. This number appears on every page. What is this? What kind of mockery of humanity is this? How can the authorities shamelessly issue such things and yet claim that everything is for the good of the people? Shame. This only confirms that the Russian Federation is inherently satanic. By accepting this satanic Russian passport, a human also accepts a personal code, the number of the beast. This is simply outrageous. All these Russian plans to create all sorts of automated systems have resulted in everyone being deceived into numbers and forced to live with these numbers, which even after death never disappear. This is a crime against humanity, which was already condemned after World War II at the Nuremberg trials, which took place from November 20, 1945 to October 1st, 1946. The International Military Tribunal, among other crimes of fascism, recognized the practice of assigning depersonalizing numbers to people and branding them with these numbers as a crime against humanity with no statute of limitations. Even if the Priozorsk court hadn't happened, the passport itself contains a personal identification code assigned to a human, not a soulless machine. This violates not only the military tribunal against the Nazis, but also other human rights and freedoms. It violates free will and humiliates the individual, equating them with Nazi prisoners, where the military tribunal clearly recognized the assignment of numbers to individuals as a crime against humanity. The personal identification code itself, along with the number of the beast, 666, are both crimes against human freedom, a violation of dignity, and a deprivation of rights and freedoms. It has the devil's hand, for we Christians are forbidden by the Bible for accepting such a number. It is also a crime against the 1948 International Declaration of Human Rights. By recognizing the personal identification code as legitimate for all people, the state officially acknowledges itself as a criminal with fascist tendencies. The question is, who needs this, since it is clearly a crime against humanity? The fact that each page contains the number 666, identified as the number of the beast in the Bible, clearly indicates that these are Jewish documents that degrade human dignity. It follows that the personal identification number is the sixes written on these pages, or, as the Priozersk court proves, a personal number instead of a name. The criminality of the personal identification number in a passport is clearly proven by the Nuremberg Military Tribunal. Conclusion. The so-called court's recognition that this code and document, which clearly contains a personal identification number and 3 sixes on each page, are legal and state-owned, means that the Russian Federation has thus admitted to being a criminal Jewish organization. It's Jewish because the number 666 itself has been used by Jews since the time of King Solomon, when he began levying tribute on conquered peoples in the amount of 666 talents of gold. Essentially, according to the Bible, the court is publicly admitting to the Russian government and itself that they are a beast state, as attested in the Bible. By accepting a passport, a human agrees not only to the personal identification number, but also to the fascist and racist teachings of Chabad, as enshrined in the constitution of the Russian Federation. Let us explain. When receiving a passport, a human is required to take an oath in accordance with Article 11 1 of Federal Law No. 62 FL of May 31, 2002, on citizenship of the Russian Federation. I, the full name, voluntarily and consciously accepting citizenship of the Russian Federation, swear to observe the Constitution and legislation of the Russian Federation. And Article 21 of Law No. 138 FZ on citizenship. Accepting a passport signifies acceptance and adherence to Chabad's ideology of the superiority of Jews over all races, and stated in their doctrinal book Tanya, which has been examined by scholars for extremist elements, fascism and racism. For many years, a wide range of people, including Jews, have been sounding the alarm about these dangerous sectarians, including the renowned public figure and writer Eduard Davidovich Kodos, a Jew by birth who was personally acquainted with the 7th Lubavitcher Rebbe of Chabad, Schneerson. Also, in the spring of 2017, at the initiative of a group of prominent Perm residents, a psychological and linguistic examination of the Tanya was conducted by a group of highly qualified experts from Perm, Moscow and St. Petersburg, psychologists, philologists, and religious scholars under the supervision of Doctor of Philosophy Professor Dmitry Trunov. Further, on January 24, 2022, the people of Russia submitted an open statement on the need to investigate the role of the international Jewish movement Chabad in the catastrophic events in Russia, Ukraine, and the world, addressed to Secretary of the Russian Security Council N.P. Patrushev, with the addition of another expert analysis, where experts, philosophers, linguists, lawyers, psychologists, having analyzed the book Tanya, came to the conclusion that Tanya preaches fascism and racism, since it presents one race as the chosen one and others as impure and calls for their destruction. However, their concerns have not reached the Russian government or President Putin, leading to the conclusion that Russia is under Jewish occupation. This evidence confirming Chabad's fascist doctrine is also found on their official website, Moshiach.ru, which states that only Jewish souls are divine, while all others are animals. Appendix number 3. As well as on the Chabad website. The infamous Letter of 5,000 is an open appeal to the Prosecutor General's Office of the Russian Federation, which appeared in early 2005. This letter, signed by many public figures and State Duma deputies, drew attention to the utterly Nazi and misanthropic nature of one of the main books of Judaism, the Shulchan Aruch. An expert opinion prepared for the court by Dr. Karl Ecker, later published as the book The Jewish Mirror. Dr. Karl Jacob, Dr. K. Ecker, Jacob Ecker, 19th century. Hebraist scholar, private lecturer at the Royal Theological Academy in Münster, and forensic expert. He is known for his expert analysis of the book Der Judenspiegel, The Jewish Mirror, published in Germany in 1883. The author of Der Judenspiegel, The Jewish Mirror, Aaron Brienman, who wrote under the pseudonym Dr. Justus, compiled 100 laws from the Shulchan Aruch, a shortened version of the Talmud, demonstrating the hostile attitude of Jews towards non-Jews. Justin Pranaitis served as an expert witness for the prosecution. He was a Catholic priest, a master of theology, and a teacher of Hebrew at the St. Petersburg Catholic Theological Academy. having also translated the Talmud. Among others were Flavian Brenier, a French journalist who wrote Jews and the Talmud, and the renowned Orthodox theologian and member of the Imperial Palestine Society, Lutostansky, who also wrote Talmud and the Jews, in which he explored the influence of Talmudic ideology on the fate of the Jewish people. A brilliant theological education received at the Moscow Theological Academy, and his knowledge of 7 languages, including Hebrew and Latin, enabled Lutostansky to create one of the most outstanding works on the history and ideology of Judaism in world scholarship. With the approval of the censorship committee, the first edition of the book was published in 1879, the last in 1902 and 1907. And all this is only a small list of works on Jewish Talmudism recognized by the scientific world community. But this is sufficient to confidently assert that numerous books of the Talmud, even if their translation into Russian for the purpose of concealing their true teachings, may omit many of misanthropic and blasphemous statements found in the original official sources, which doesn't diminish their satanic essence, are truly fascism and extremism. And so, in accordance with Article 28 of the Constitution of the Russian Federation, the Jewish fascists of Chabad freely act in accordance with their ideology of the Book of Tanya and the Talmud. And no one prevents this. This horror is supported at the highest levels of Russian government. Everyone knows perfectly well the consequences of the ideology of racial superiority. And here, this ideology has been instilled not just in secular laws but also in religious ones, as the Jews hide their fascism behind the guise of religion. Thus, the constitution legitimized not just the superiority of one race over another, but also the superiority of the devil over the Holy Trinity, over Jesus Christ, propagating everywhere that there is only one God, and salvation can be found in any religion. This ideology of pluralism rejects the fundamental dogma of the redemptive work of the Son of God, Jesus Christ. For us Orthodox Christians, this is hostile teaching aimed at eradicating the faith of the Russian people. This contradicts the Bible and the Orthodox faith, yet it has been officially recognized. A document example of pluralism in the Document of Human Brotherhood, adopted at the Congress of Leaders of World and Traditional Religions in Kazakhstan in 2022 and 2025. This fascist doctrine has been legalized in the Constitution, and through the adoption of a passport, we are forced to swear allegiance to such laws, to swear allegiance to Jewish Talmudism and sectarianism, to religious pluralism, which claims that this Jewish synagogue, with its fanatical, terroristic teaching, supposedly contains truth and is good. We are all being forced to accept the Jewish religion as traditional, where they call all people animals and excrements, which is proven by numerous scientific studies. We are accused of not taking as passport and not accepting certain articles of the Constitution, Part 3 of Article 17, 28, 29, Part 3 of Article 55, related to the Orthodox faith, which, with the pluralism, are hostile to our God, the Holy Trinity. By its ruling of December 7, 2017, number 27930, Clause 2, the Constitutional Court of the Russian Federation, consisting of 16 judges, confirmed that the Russian Federation lives only in pluralism and grants freedom of faith in Article 28 of the Constitution to all registered religions only within the framework of pluralism, and confirmed that this fact is legitimized in the Constitution, Appendix number 10. Consequently, the Moscow Patriarchate is an organization living in pluralism. Pluralism is an extremist ideology that promotes many truths, destroying one, distorting the entire Bible. Pluralism is also the destruction of the atoning sacrifice of the Lord Jesus Christ, the denial of freedom of faith and belief, the violation of the core of what we love and confess, the banning of orthodoxy in our land, religious and national hostility, terror, crime, tyranny, forced renunciation of the Bible, a curse for believers and the banning of orthodoxy in our land, persecution of believers who don't accept this heresy of pluralism. Pluralism is a new religion that is forced to accept everyone, and those who disagree are imprisoned and beaten. It is Satanism, disguised as good. We are being forced to go against the creed. According to the teachings of the Orthodox Church, pluralism is the religion of the Antichrist, which was introduced into the laws of the Russian Federation, Article 28 of the Constitution, Federal Law 114, etc. The Russian Orthodox Church abroad has condemned pluralism and ecumenism. In essence, these are the same thing these days, for they all converge on the foundation of pluralism, a multitude of paths, all of them correct. These conciliar decisions essentially condemn the Moscow Patriarchate and similar Russian laws on pluralism, the decision of the Bishops' Council of August 1629, 1938, banning the participation of the children of the Russian Orthodox Church in the ecumenical movement, the decision of the Russian Orthodox Church Synod of 1984, anathema to ecumenism, church life, number 78, 1984. The authorities themselves, by introducing this teaching, insult God and offend our sensibilities. This is a massive deception of the entire Russian Orthodox nation, genocide and religious extremism. These are the articles of the Constitution and laws they are imposing on the people, hiding behind foreign Western jargon without explaining them to ordinary people. Essentially, those who introduced these laws are destroying the very faith of the Russian people, hiding behind decency, pushing through a diabolical, monstrous doctrine. Pluralism implies that if a belief is sincere, then it's true. What kind of nonsense is this? Because if you sincerely think that sodomites are great, then what does that mean is true? And if someone believes such nonsense, are we supposed to accept it as truth? Where are these people's heads? Who introduced this? This is a deliberate desecration of the bright truth of Christ our God. That's what they've implanted in our Constitution. And through our passports, they force us to swear allegiance to this heresy. That's why we reject this and cannot accept either a Russian passport or registration. We openly declare that the introduction of religious pluralism is a declared war on all Orthodox believers who have not yet realized what has been done to them. A passport is an agreement to the articles of the Constitution and a coercion to this heresy. By accepting a passport, people agree that they are excrement and animals and agree to equal rights with Jewish extremism. The Russian Federation has officially registered extremists and fascists, racists and terrorists, and through the passport they force us to swear allegiance to them and to equate our faith with them. They teach their children the book Tanya in schools, specifically in Russia. This is a humiliation of all people. Such a document cannot be legal, for it essentially forces an oath that people are animals. A simple example: if we acknowledge that the Jews have truth, then we are admitting that they did the right thing in killing Christ, our God. This is a blatant betrayal. Isn't this genocide against us, Russian Orthodox people? Doesn't this violate the dogmas of the Church? Isn't this religious extremism? Of course it is, and evil that emanates from the Church. How can orthodoxy be the same as sects? What kind of madness is this? And they force us to agree with this lie about God. If someone were told that all sodomites are the same as their father and mother, that they are one and the same, would they agree? Of course not. But how can we accept this name-calling in relation to our Heavenly Father? We, the Russian Orthodox Church, cannot accept these documents that force people to renounce their God and faith. Pluralism is cunning in that it is presented as a tool against religious disputes and wars, but it itself is a weapon that offends the feelings of believers and insults God. This entire crime against the people is a coercive push to recognize Jewish terrorism and genocide in Russia as legal. This behavior by the Russian authorities demonstrates that, by promoting such an anti-human religion, they have no respect for people, or by serving the Jews for money, they are deliberately committing this diabolical deed. By doing so, they clearly affirmed that it is the Jews in power who are issuing such things to the people and mocking them. From all of this, one can conclude that the Russian passport is a manipulator, forcing the adoption of criminal laws against the Bible. A passport is an oath to religious pluralism, ecumenism, and to the equality of all religions and sects. A passport is an oath to the racist and fascist doctrine of the Chabad sect, an admission that only Jews are human beings, and that no Jews are goyim, animals, cattle. By accepting a Russian passport, a human acknowledges the ideology of Jewish racism and agrees that the Jews can treat them according to their religious fascist precepts of the Talmud and Tanya. A Russian passport legitimizes Jewish racism, fascism, and extremism in our land. Therefore, anyone who accepts this blasphemous Jewish document cannot be called a believing Orthodox Christian. They have sworn allegiance to the Jews and agreed to be their slave and obedient servant. All people in the Russian Federation who have voluntarily accepted a passport have voluntarily enslaved themselves to the Jewish Satanists of Chabad. And when believers, aware of this Jewish deception, refuse to accept these blasphemous passports with 3 sixes, but security forces and other representatives of the so-called Russian government force them to do so, they are forcing people to swear allegiance to the Jews and to recognize themselves as animals, and the Jewish fascists themselves as a superior race. Our ancestors once defeated German fascism, but now an even worse fascism, Jewish fascism, flourishes in our land. Therefore, believers who oppose Russian passports are truly acting as true patriots and defenders of their homeland against Jewish fascism and racism. May God grant all people to understand and discern this. Based on the above, I wish to attach to the case file this information regarding the outrageous fact of assigning numbers to a human convicted by the military tribunal and bearing the number of the beast 666. The forced oath of allegiance through a passport to this barbaric, terrorist, fascist Chabad faith, legalized in the Russian Federation, an oath to pluralism which marks the saving feet of Jesus Christ is unacceptable for an Orthodox Christian, for it is a betrayal of God and the Orthodox faith. This horrific information concerns not only Orthodox Christians, but all living people in general. He who has ears, let him hear. Amen.